Parshas Seitzei. This week's parsha contains 74 mitzvahs, more mitzvahs than any other parsha in the Torah. Many of these mitzvahs are related to the family and to the home, but as we'll see, this parsha also contains important messages for us as we prepare for the Yomim Noraim. At the very end of this week's parsha, we're promised arichas yomim, long life, for maintaining honest weights and measures. This mitzvah is then followed by a seemingly unrelated mitzvah, Timcha es Amalek. We read it on Parshas Zachar, the Shabbos before Purim, to destroy the memory of Amalek. Rashi quotes a fascinating medrash that teaches us the connection between these two. If you see a generation that has bad weights, you should know that the foreign government will pick a fight with that generation. And then it tivas the obvious question, what's the connection between the two? Why should bad weights lead to a bad government? Then it then quotes another Gemara, a Gemara that teaches us just how serious it is to have bad weights. The Gemara in Bava Basra that tells us kosher einshon shall midos yosemi einshon shall arayas. The punishment meted out for people who have bad weights, inaccurate weights, is worse than the punishment for immorality. And the question is why? Why is it such a big deal to steal a little bit of people, a bit here, a bit there? Why is that so serious? So the Netziv answers by explaining that there are three primary reasons why people do Averis in the first place. Number one, a lack of emunah and bitochen, a lack of belief and trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Number two, taiva, a lust, a desire to possess something that's forbidden, something that's not for them. And lastly, bad midas, bad characteristics. One's hatred agitates the sinner to the point where they break out in violence. Idolatry, immorality, murder, the three cardinal sins for which we know Yehoreg V'Aliava, a person should rather give their life for rather than transgress. These are the most extreme examples of these three categories. The first one, Avodah Zarah, idolatry, is the prototype of a sin based in a lack of belief and trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The second one, Gilei Arayos, immorality. This represents the sins of lust and desire. And lastly, Shfichas Damim, murder, is the ultimate sin motivated by bad character traits. Of these three, writes the Netziv, idolatry and a lack of belief in Hashem is actually the worst. It's the most fundamental. It affects our entire outlook. It's pervasive, it's lifelong, whereas the other two might be a short-term sin. And as we are reminded continually throughout Nach, Avodah Zarah often leads to a downward spiral of murder and immorality. Now theft is usually motivated by lust, and so therefore that would be categorized with immorality, wanting something that's not yours. But one who supplements their income with unjust weights and measures, that's a different type of thief. Such a cold, calculated crime comes from a place of lack of faith in Hashem. By cheating other people in this way, one is stating that they do not believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is that it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu who supplies every living thing with their wants without resorting to dishonesty and deviousness. Says the Netziv, we don't always appreciate that it's our lack of emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu that leads us to act out in our dealings with others. It's too easy to think that our lack of emunah is responsible for just us not davening properly or we don't learn enough. But in truth, one who has bitochen in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will provide for them, will be honest in their business dealings too. And that's why the Gemara writes that the punishment for unjust weights is more severe than immorality. Because unlike other forms of stealing which are in the category of immorality, this one is in the category of idolatry. It's a lack of emunah. The first time we read about Amalek, it was right after Klal Yisrael challenged Hashem at Masa Mariva, where they exhibited a lack of bitachon. Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu moyin, does HaKadosh Baruch Hu exist amongst us or not? Amalek, of course, represents the belief that nothing is from the hand of God. There's no hashgacha pratis, there's no divine providence. The opposite of emunah b'Hashem. Remember what Amalek did to you on the way, but on the way out of Egypt. Asher karacha baderech, which we usually translate, they chanced upon you on the way. Rashi tells us the word karacha indicates something that happened just by chance. Chazal point out that it was Haman that uses the same word. Haman relates to Zeresh and his family members everything that just so happened to him. Coincidence, happenstance, lack of a master plan. When we understand this, we can understand why cheating with weights, exhibiting such a lack of emunah that everything comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is followed by Haman, the epitome of the lack of emunah, and a most befitting consequence. Rav Hirsch adds that with this mitzvah of maintaining accurate weights and measures, Klal Yisrael are being taught that in order for them to be worthy of their mission as Am Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael, they have to be honest in their business dealings. This is followed by Amalek, who represents the exact opposite. Sovereignty based not on justice, based not on moral standing, but on power and might and strength. And this is why we're told that keeping honest weights will allow for a long life in our land. The parasha ends off, Lo tishkach, don't forget. This doesn't just refer to don't forget what Amalek did to us, but don't forget what Amalek stands for. Make sure you remember that there are forces that will try to deter you from believing in Hashem, who will try to tell you that things are coincidental, who will try to deny the concept of hashgacha pratis, of divine providence. Let's remember this, and then even our relationships with other people will improve, and we will merit the bracha promised. In order that you will have long life on the land which HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving to you. Have a wonderful Shabbos.